Hello and welcome to CVR English. I'm Zinnat and you are watching World News. A Russian missile attack on the Ukrainian port city of Odesa has killed at least one person, wounded 19 and badly damaged on Orthodox Cathedral. According to officials, Oleg Kipur, the governor of Odesa, said on the Telegram messaging app that those wounded in Sunday's air attack included several children. The assault also destroyed 6 houses and apartment buildings. He added, Russia has been pounding Odesa and other Ukrainian food export facilities nearly daily over the past week after it withdrew from a United Nations blockade Sea corridor agreement that allowed for the safe shipment of Ukrainian grain.
Also, caliber cruise missiles fired from the offshore and the
20 others, including 4 children, have been injured. Ukrainian authorities say religious and residential buildings have been destroyed. Russia has been shelling Odesa and other food export facilities nearly every day for the past week. Moscow has withdrawn from a UN-brokered grain deal that allowed Ukrainian grain to be exported through the Black Sea.
Buildings and houses were damaged either by missiles or by falling debris from intercepted missiles. Also, a cathedral in the historic center of Odesa and port infrastructure. Infrastructure in the port facilities of Odesa and other ports in the south have been particularly targeted throughout recent days. The authorities say that a total of 5 different types of missiles were used in last night's attack, high precision Onyx missiles and also caliber cruise missiles fired from the offshore on the Black Sea. This is now the 6th consecutive night of attacks on Odesa. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has vowed retaliation for what he calls Russian evil.
Rob, we're saying there...
It does seem to be. There seems to be an uptick in fighting. A lot of this has been started with last Monday's attack on the Kerch Bridge with the links Russia with Crimea. Then we saw on Monday the scrapping of the grain deal, the Black Sea grain deal. And then subsequently, night after night, we've seen these attacks on Odesa and other port cities along the Ukrainian coast, especially targeting grain handling facilities, which has led to claims by Ukraine that this is Russia systematically trying to stop its food exporting capabilities. Yesterday, Saturday, we've seen increased attacks by Ukraine deep into Crimea itself. There was an attack on a fuel and ammunition depot right in the center of Crimea. Pictures released on social media show a towering plume of smoke and also explosions going off, which seems to indicate that this was indeed an ammunition dump being targeted. We saw the governor of Russian-controlled Crimea ordering the evacuation of people within a certain number of kilometers and also the suspension for a time of rail services. So Ukraine certainly does seem to be targeting Crimea with a stated intention of taking back the Crimean peninsula, with Zelensky vowing that the Kerch Bridge, which connects Russia to Crimea, is an enemy object that carries means of destruction and that it is a valid target which he says will be neutralized.
Robert Bright in Kyiv. Rob, thank you. 20 others, including 4 children, have been injured. Ukrainian authorities say religious and residential buildings have been destroyed. Russia has been shelling Odesa and other food export facilities nearly every day for the past week. Moscow has withdrawn from a UN-brokered grain deal that allowed Ukrainian grain to...
Lebanon is one of the countries that will feel the impact of the collapse of the grain deal. The multiple crises facing the country have led to high levels of poverty and food insecurity.
Harvest season is almost over. Farmers say they had little choice but to bolster production because of Lebanon's economic crisis and the rise in global food prices. But the country is far from producing enough amounts to meet local demand.
In the past, the percentage of farmers who grew wheat was around 40%. Now it's more than 70%. If we get more support, we would be able to grow much more.
It is an expensive business, especially since Lebanon imports almost everything, and the local currency lost more than 95% of its value. The nearly bankrupt government has promised to support production by providing seeds at a low price.
We face a lot of challenges to be able to invest in our land. We are poor. We need dollars to buy pesticides. That's why the government should support us.
Successive governments left the agricultural sector underfunded and underdeveloped for decades, and the breakdown in government services means there is a lack of water for irrigation.
The financial meltdown has made the situation of farmers worse. Some have stopped their work. High energy costs affect their operations.
The international community has stepped in. The United Nations and NGOs have been helping develop a more sustainable local food system. The need is to increase production and lower the cost.
We have a big challenge all the way down from the farmers, the production of wheat, all the way down to the people who are consuming it and trying to buy the products as well. Fundamentally, food insecurity has risen during this time, and we haven't got enough.
11 people were killed in a suspected arson attack on a bar in a northern Mexican border city of San Luis Rio Colorado after an expelled parton set in ablaze with a Molotov cocktail, authorities in the state of Sonora said on Saturday. Sonora State prosecutors said preliminary findings showed the suspect was young, male and highly intoxicated at the time of the attack in the early hours of Saturday, and had been thrown out of the bar for being disrespectful to women there. He then came back and threw a kind of Molotov cocktail at the doors of the bar, according to a statement from prosecutors in the state, which shares a long border with Arizona. 4 of the 11 dead were women, and 4 more people were being treated in hospital for their injuries. They added one of the women was a US citizen, probably a dual Mexican national, and another victim was only 17 years old. Gustavo Romulo Silas, the state attorney general, told a press conference. Santos Gonzalez, the mayor of the city, said that the suspect, a man, had been arrested by police. Tens of thousands of Israelis have marched into Jerusalem, and more protesters have taken to the streets in Tel Aviv in a last-ditch show of force amid a blocking Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's contentious judicial overhaul plan. The protests on Saturday came as more than 100 of Israel's former security chiefs signed a letter pleading with Netanyahu to halt the legislation, and thousands of additional military reservists said they would no longer report for duty in a protest against the plan. The Israel Parliament, or Knesset, is set to hold a final vote on Saturday and Monday on the bill that would limit the Supreme Court's powers to void what it considers unreasonable government or ministerial decisions.
Monday, about 10,000 military reservists say they're suspending voluntary service in opposition to the policy.
I'm here because the extremists are trying to change our regime. They got into power and they are trying to make us a weak democracy.
I came here to protest everything that is happening in the state of Israel. I think the situation requires all of us to stand up. Democracy and humanism are being eroded on a daily basis by politicians, religious figures, and leaders of communities in the country. And we need to do something about it. We need to say enough is enough.
Protesters that are out this evening in Tel Aviv are opposed
to the very controversial plans of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to try and overhaul the judiciary of Israel. This is the 29th week of protests. There is a massive amount of people here already, and it's expected the numbers will only grow. And this is not the only demonstration that's taken place today. There have been at least 12 other demonstrations throughout the country, including tens of thousands of people that were marching from Tel Aviv, making their way to the Knesset in West Jerusalem, where they will demonstrate against the debate that is scheduled to start Sunday on the potential passage of a very controversial bill that would see, critics say, the oversight powers of the Supreme Court weakened substantially if it were to pass.
We all know how useful drones can be. They are used for mapping, search and rescue operations, and even to deliver essentials like medical kits in remote areas. There is now a new drone that is being seen as a more flexible and affordable alternative to state lights. We get you more details in this report.
With each passing day, the drone technology seems to be getting better, smarter, and more sophisticated. Recently, CVR 35, a solar-powered drone, successfully completed its first high-altitude flight into the stratosphere. Stratosphere is the second layer of the Earth's atmosphere. The CVR 35 drone took off from New Mexico and it soared to more than 66,000 feet over a period of 24 hours. It reached the stratosphere and landed successfully. But what sets this drone apart? Interestingly, the CVR 35 drone can operate in the air for 20 months, that too without any human intervention. While the average drone has a flight time of 30 minutes, the solar-powered drone is capable of being in the air for more than a year with ease. CVR 35 is powered by the sun during the day and runs on solar-powered batteries during the night. Designed as a cheap alternative to satellites, it can be used for surveillance, border control, communications, and disaster relief operations.
Amid calls for repatriation to Myanmar from a section of Rohingya living in a camp in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar, U.S. Undersecretary for Human Rights Odesa Cathedral has voiced concerns about safety and rights given to the community back home. Beyond just their transportation, any repatriation plan has to consider integration, access to fundamental rights, and restoration of the dignity of the community.
The conditions for eventual, safe, dignified, informed, and voluntary return of Rohingya, conditions that do not currently exist.
The US Undersecretary for Human Rights on a visit to Bangladesh spells out the reality of millions of Rohingyas living here who raise a voice to go home. This demonstration held in the sprawling Cox's Bazar camp on World Refugee Day last month show up the desperation of Rohingyas marooned in Bangladesh for 6 years now. These people are not officially recognized as refugees here because Bangladesh is not a signatory to the 1951 Convention or its 1967 Refugee Protocol. They're not eligible to refugee rights and want to go home.
We want repatriation soon, which will be a dignified repatriation. Where we are living now, it is like hell. We want to go back to our home where we were born. We call the international community to solve the problem soon and help us get repatriated.
But is it really as simple as transporting the Rohingya back home? Experts point out that the issue extends to complex and multifaceted questions around conditions in Myanmar, safety, and beyond. Having faced systemic persecution and discrimination for years, any repatriation plan for Rohingyas must consider the prospects for their integration, access to fundamental.
Lukashenko will be meeting Putin as part of a working visit to Russia. The two will be discussing about future course of the strategic partnership between their countries. A Russian war reporter was killed and 3 others were wounded in what Moscow said was an attack by Ukraine using cluster munitions. The deceased journalist was a correspondent with Russia's state news agency, and his 3 colleagues were evacuated from Zaporizhzhia region. In a separate incident, German broadcaster Deutsche Welle said one of its journalists had been wounded elsewhere in Ukraine. Russia launched yet another wave of attacks on the Black Sea port of Ukraine's Odesa. At least 1 person died and 18 others were injured in that.
Visit to Russia. The two will be discussing the future course of the strategic partnership between their countries. Minsk has been stepping up support to Moscow on multiple fronts. This includes hosting nuclear weapons from Russia, as well as the recent joint military drills with the Wagner fighters, which forced Poland and Ukraine to beef up security at their borders with Belarus. On the battlefield, the implications of using cluster munitions have become apparent. A Russian war reporter was killed and 3 others were wounded in what Moscow said was an attack by Ukraine using cluster munitions. The deceased journalist was a correspondent with Russia's state news agency, and his 3 colleagues were evacuated from Zaporizhzhia region as well. In a separate incident, the German broadcaster Deutsche Welle said that one of its journalists had been wounded elsewhere in Ukraine as well. The media company added that
days after a horrifying video showing 2 women being paraded in public naked by dozens of men surfaced. A 6th arrest has been made in the Indian state of Manipur.
Is from May 4th. It shows 2 women being paraded naked by dozens of men. An FIR was lodged in the case on May 18th, but it was only after the video of the incident got viral a few days back. It was only after that the police swung into action, and the first arrest was made after 62 days. The latest round of ethnic violence between 2 tribal groups, Kuki and Methi, broke out in India's northeastern state of Manipur on May 3rd. Even after 2 months, the government has not been able to control the unrest, which has claimed at least 160 lives and displaced thousands. Even before the horrific video surfaced, the National Commission for Women was apprised of the same. 2 women activists and a civil society organization lodged an appeal more than a month ago on June 12th. Since then, the NWNCW says that they have written to the Manipur government 3 times but did not receive any response. Meanwhile, in the Indian national capital, New Delhi, students group organized demonstrations against the Manipur government. They have demanded the Chief Minister N. Biren Singh to resign within 24 hours.
Those people
is from May 4th.
Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will undergo surgery to have a pacemaker implanted, said his office in an official statement on Sunday. Netanyahu has arrived at Sheba Medical Center, and the procedure of implementing a cardiac pacemaker has begun, reported Times of Israel. This decision comes just days after he was discharged from the hospital following a health scare. Prime Minister Netanyahu will tonight undergo a procedure to implant a pacemaker at Sheba Medical Center at Tel HaShomer. The statement reads, "The procedure will be carried out under sedation. during which time Justice Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Yariv Lenin will stand in for him. It added a week ago Netanyahu, age 73, had been released from the same medical center after a night of hospitalization due to complaints of dizziness.
3 minutes past midnight, and despite the lighting, I would like to update you on the development. A week ago, I was fitted with a device. That device beeped this evening and said that I should receive a pacemaker. And they will have to do this already tonight. I feel great, but I must listen to my doctors. Up until the past few minutes, I have been talking with my colleagues, making the necessary arrangements. I hope that an agreement will be reached. But in any case, the doctors said that I will be free tomorrow afternoon, discharged from the hospital, and will be able to go to the Knesset to vote. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Israel's parliament will be meeting in a few hours from now. The meeting called on a Sunday is crucial. The very first of the bill of the contested judicial reforms will be presented today, after which debate and discussion of the bill will begin. That is before a final vote on Monday takes place. The Benjamin Netanyahu-led government is set to win the vote as it sits in a comfortable majority in the single-chamber Knesset. And this is how people are reacting to the development. A sea of Israeli flags converged in Jerusalem on Saturday evening. Thousands of demonstrators entered their last leg of a 4-day march from Tel Aviv to Israel's parliament in Jerusalem.
Four people were killed and 10 injured on Saturday after a hot water pipe burst at a shopping mall in western Moscow. Officials said Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said some of those injured had suffered burns and that emergency services were working on the scene. Russian news agencies quoted investigators as saying that there had been no ammonia leak at the site as had been suspected for a time. Video footage showed floating throughout the building and steam flowing out of a doorway. The mall, known as Remena Kota, opened in 2007 and houses over 150 stores. We are providing medical assistance to all the victims.
Нам сказал охранник, что пора эвакуироваться. Мы побоялась там лифты. Мало ли что может случиться, поэтому мы пошли по эскалаторам, как и все пошли.
The heaviest rain to hit the Atlantic Canadian province of Nova Scotia in more than 50 years triggered floods causing unimaginable damage, and 4 people are missing, including 2 children, officials said on Saturday. The storm, which started on Friday, dumped more than 25 centimeters or some parts in just 24 hours, the same amount that usually lands in 3 months. The resulting floods washed away roads, weakened bridges and swamped buildings. We have a scary, significant situation, said Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, adding that at least 7 bridges would have to be replaced or rebuilt. The property damage to homes is pretty unimaginable, he told a news conference. Houston said the province would be seeking significant support from the federal government. Prime Minister Justin to Diao told reporters in Toronto he was very concerned about the floods and promised that Ottawa will be there for the province.
Thousands of people without power. This is a time for, particularly with rainfall, expected to continue for people to listen to local authorities on how to stay safe. Thousands of people without power. This is a time for particularly.
Well, that was the wrap-up bulletin. For more world updates, keep watching CVR English with Zinat.